Welcome back to the Snowpoint Cast. Today we're going to be going over a deck from 2009 called Flychamp. Flychamp got second at the World Championships in 2009. A player named Sami Sekkoum got second with it. It's a really powerful archetype for a lot of reasons. But yeah, let's get right into it. So starting off with 3 Trapinch. You play a 3-1 split on Trapinch. So the first Trapinch has got 50 HP, single retreat, resistance to lightning, and a weakness to water. Inviting Trap is the first attack. So for a colorless, you can switch to the defending Pokemon with one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. This can be really nice if your opponent has like Claydol on the bench and you just got to stall for a few turns. But bringing up anything is just like a really good attack to have for sure. And then the other attack, so for 1 fighting, it's Sand Tomb for 10. The defending Pokemon can't retreat during your opponent's next turn. Definitely a really interesting option as well. There's another build of this deck that pretty much relies on this attack, and that's the Palkia Memory Berry variant. You don't use it as much in this variant, but I was thinking about taking a Memory Berry just because that is such a good attack. And with Flygon, you can just like bring something up, trap it active, and then mill with the level X. Okay, so you also play one of this Trapinch. So this Trapinch has got 50 HP. This was the one from Rising Rivals. A single retreat, resistance to lightning, and a weakness to water. The Poke Power is the reason you play it. So gather sand. Once during your turn, if Trapinch is your active Pokemon, you may search your discard pile for a basic energy card and attach it to Trapinch. So that can be really clutch because Flygon gives your fighting Pokemon free retreat. So if you have a fighting energy in the discard and you have a Flygon that you're ready to attack with, you don't need to promote it. You could promote the Trapinch, gather sand first, and be accelerating. So definitely a really good option to have as well. And then grind for 1 colorless. It does 10 times the amount of energy attached to Trapinch. So you still play 2 Vibrava. Vibrava's got 70 HP, a single retreat, resistance to lightning, and a weakness to colorless. So Energy Typhoon is actually a pretty good attack. So for 1 colorless, it does 20 times the amount of energy in your opponent's discard pile, and then put those energy cards back on top of your opponent's deck, and then they shuffle their deck. So that's really good in some matchups in particular. Against Kingdra, it's really good. They want a lot of energy in their discard, and they intentionally discard it. So being able to disrupt them like that is really nice. But also, it really, if you're at any point in the game that's really late and there's been a lot of energy discarded, coming out of nowhere with a single energy attack can be really good if you don't have another option. And then quick attack for 2 colorless does 20. Flip a coin of heads. This deck does 20 plus 20 more damage. Okay, so you play 3 of the Rising Rivals Flygon. This is like the main Flygon in the deck. Super powerful card. So Flygon's got 120 HP, a free retreat, which is amazing, a resistance to lightning, and a weakness to colorless. The Poke Body is called Rainbow Float. So if any basic energy card is attached to Flygon, the same type as any of your Pokemon for that. So essentially what it says is if you have a basic energy, Pokemon of that type have free retreat. So really solid. You have a fighting energy on there, and then all of a sudden your 2 energy or 2 retreat, 3 retreat Machamps are now free retreat. Your Claydols are free retreat, your Trapinches are free retreat. Just like a really good power for sure. And then the attack, both of these attacks are also really good. Makes sense why this deck's really good. So Sandwall, the first one for 2 colorless, it does 40. Discard a stadium card your opponent has in play. If you do, prevent all effects of attack, including damage onto Flygon during your opponent's next turn. So super powerful, especially in a broken time space format. There's a ton of broken time space in this format, and players just like to play it and then, you know, play out their hand, because when you play broken time space, you can play the evolutions in your hand, and then you can Uxie for more, and you can Claydol for more. But it's really beneficial when your opponent ever drops a stadium. It's really helpful against Gyarados, and honestly, any matchup that runs BTS, this is a really good attack. And then Power Swing is the other attack, so Power Swing is really good as well. So for 3 colors, it does 60, and then it does 10 more damage for each evolved Pokemon on your bench. So you can hit for a max 110 if you have 5 benched Pokemon that are evolved, which is a significant amount to swing for sure. Okay, and then you also play one of the Flygon Level X. So Flygon Level X is a really good card as well. So got 140 HP, still free retreat, resistance to lightning, colorless weakness times 2. Wind Erosion is the Pokebody, so as long as Flygon is your active Pokemon, discard the top card of your opponent's deck in between turns. So that's really good at milling your opponent's resources. And honestly, there are some games where your opponent just needs a certain resource, and if you can mill it, then you just win the game. And that's one of the reasons this deck is so good, because you can just happen to hit really good Wind Erosion cards, and then you can just find win conditions off of your Wind Erosion. And you can also just mill your opponent. Like if they get too low, you can just kind of, like I said, Sand Trap. You can Sand Trap something active and then Wind Erosion if you have that Memory Berry that I was talking about. An extreme attack. So for 3 extreme attack, choose one of your opponent's Pokemon. This attack, a Pokemon level X. This attack does 150 damage to that Pokemon. So that's a really good attack because it kills like almost every single level X out there. I think there might be a couple like Torterra, Stormfront that it doesn't kill, but and Regigigas, I think. But like almost every relevant one that's a stage 2, you kill. So really solid. And if your opponent ever like has a Uxie on the bench that they've retreated to, you can just snipe it. There's just so many options to this deck. Really good attack. Okay, so you also play a Machamp Line in this deck. So you play 2 Machop, 60 HP, single retreat and weakness to Psychic. Kick for 1 colorless does 10. Knockback for a fighting and a colorless does 20. And then your opponent switches the defending Pokemon with one of their benched Pokemon. And then you play 1 Machoke just to keep that line consistent, so you can Bebe search it out. 80 HP, 2 retreat, and a weakness to Psychic still. Steady Punch for 1 fighting, 20, and then you flip a coin of heads, it does 20 plus 20 more. Brick Break for a fighting and a colorless does 30, and it's not affected by any effects on the opponent's active. But the reason you play this is for Machamp. So Machamp is a really good card. 130 HP, so it's pretty tanky. And then 2 retreat and a weakness to Psychic. So it's got 3 attacks, first of all, which is a lot of attacks. The first attack is really good. So Takeout for 1 and does 40, which is a fair amount of damage. It's nothing crazy, but it's definitely 1 for 40 is decent. But the effect on Takeout is amazing. So if your opponent's active is a basic Pokemon, instead of doing damage, Takeout just knocks out that Pokemon. So Pokemon SP are a pretty big part of this format. They're just really powerful. You know, Luxray, Palkia are both pretty big cards in this format. And being able to just take them out for 1 means that you have such a good matchup with the SP. And I think, yeah, there was like a ton of games that Sami said he played against SP. And I think he only lost against like... I don't think he lost against anything. I think he played SP like 8 times throughout the tournament and he didn't lose at all, which is like, it makes sense because Machamp is so good. Same with Flygon level X, right? Like both of the level X's that are SP, Luxray and Palkia that are the main SPs, I guess Infernape too, you can just knock them out as soon as they level X. Like they don't get to just hold it on the bench and poke a turn the turn that they want to, which is just like so powerful. And that in combination with Takeout is a lot for an SP deck to deal with. And then the second attack on Machamp is called Hurricane Punch. So for 2 colors, it does 30. Flip 4 coins, this deck does 30 damage times the number of heads. I really wish this deck was better because I actually tend to use this attack a fair amount and it sucks flipping coins. I just hate flipping coins because when you use this attack and you flip 4 tails, it's like, wow, I dedicated 2 energy to do nothing this turn. That's great. But definitely useful as well. I mean, if you have a situation where your opponent has a fighting weak active, you can flip like 3 heads and then hit a plus 30 and then you can kill like a Porygon Z or something like that. There are situations where Hurricane Punch is good compared to Takeout, but honestly not an amazing attack. And then the last attack, which is actually pretty decent, so Rage for 2 fighting, 2 colorless does 60 plus 10 more damage for each damage counter on Machamp. So 130 HP is pretty bulky and that makes Rage really good, but you also play the level X, which ups your HP and makes Rage even better. So 150 HP, 3 retreat, and a plus 40 weakness to Psychic. It's not actually ×2. That's interesting. I didn't know that until right now. So yeah, plus 40 weakness to Psychic, definitely really good. No guard. So the body, when it's active, Machamp does 60 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon, and then your opponent's active also does 60 more damage to Machamp. So that's really good because it means that you're doing like 100 for 1 with Takeout. That's like so insane. It means that your Rage is almost always hit. I think it's called Rage. Yeah, Rage. I think your Rage is like almost always hit for KO if you've been hit by something. And then it makes Strong-Willed a kind of viable strategy as well. So Strong-Willed for a fighting and 2 colorless does 20. And then if Machamp would be knocked out by damage from an attack, flip a coin. If heads, Machamp is not knocked out. It has 10 HP instead. So that has a lot of synergy with the Nidoqueen line. And we're going to talk about Nidoqueen right now. So Nidoran, it's got 60 HP, single retreat, and a weakness to Psychic. Scratch, 1 Psychic for 10, and then Offer Help is the good attack for 2 colorless. Search your deck for a supporter card. Definitely good if you're bricking. But the Nidoqueen, so 120 HP, 3 retreat, resistance to lightning, and a weakness to Psychic. Maternal Comfort is part of what makes Machamp level X such a good card. Because you can go Strong-Willed, hit him for 80, okay, and then if they knock you out, flip a coin. Let's say you flip a heads, okay, and then puts you at 10 HP. Next turn, your opponent has a lot of options. Like if they're playing an SP deck, they can just drop a Crobat on you and then you die. If they're playing literally anything that just does 10 damage, you just die. And not to mention that, if you use Strong-Willed again with only 10 HP, it doesn't do anything. But with Maternal Comfort is Nidoqueen's Pokebody, and it heals 10 from all of your Pokemon in between turns. So it's really good because you have free retreat on everything with Flygon, so you can just rotate between stuff and attack with different attackers that have full HP until the other ones are healed up. But also it just means that you can, if you want to, you can just go aggro Machamp and then if you're like, well, I'm going to lose the game if I get another Pokemon knocked out, I just need to flip some heads on this level X attack. I mean, that's a thing that sometimes happens. So knowing that Maternal Comfort Machamp is a good combo, definitely a really solid combo in the deck. And then Nidoqueen also has some decent attacks. So for 1 Psychic, does 40 with Mega Punch, so definitely really decent. And then Ruthless Tail for 1 Psychic, 2 Colorless, does 50 plus 10 damage for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So in this format, there tends to be a fair amount of bench Pokemon. Stage 2 decks are pretty prevalent, pretty powerful. So this attack, especially when you play Upper Energy, it's good to know that you have this attack because there are some matchups where that attack is pretty useful. Okay, so you also play a 2/2 Claydol line. So you play 2 of the Baltoys, got 50 HP, a single retreat, weakness to grass. So Psychic Balance for 1 colorless. If you have less cards in your hand than your opponent, you just draw to match them. So really good if you're bricking. And then Spin Turn, you do play fighting, so you can use Spin Turn, and it's definitely decent. I mean, if you have to attach 2 to Baltoy, that kind of sucks, but fighting in a colorless does 20, and then you can switch, or you have to switch Baltoy with one of your bench Pokemon. But the reason you play that is for Claydol. So Claydol's a really solid card. 80 HP, 2 retreat, and a weakness to grass. Cosmic Power. You can choose up to 2 cards from your hand, put them to the bottom of your deck, and then draw until you have 6 cards in your hand. So such a good consistency option because there's bits and pieces of this deck that you need at certain points and bits and pieces that you don't. So you can just chuck them to the bottom and then hopefully draw into the cards that you need. And in addition to like the supporters and an Uxie and Chatot that this deck already plays, there's tons of consistency that's so good for this deck. Okay, I gotta move this up because there's so many Pokemon in this deck. Okay, all right, lots of Pokemon. All right, so next Pokemon is Unown G. So you play 2 Unown G. Guard is okay. So guard essentially works like this. Let's say we have a Machop active, okay, and our opponent has a Machamp active. That sucks for us because we're gonna get taked out unless we have an Unown G. So Unown G works like this: when you have it on your bench, you can activate Guard. And then Unown G becomes a Pokemon tool that you can attach to one of your Pokemon, okay? So once Unown G is attached to your Pokemon, that Pokemon does not take any effects of attack. So let's say the Machamp has a fighting energy and it uses Takeout. That Machop will still take 40 because it doesn't stop damage. But Machop is a basic Pokemon and it would get knocked out by Takeout. But because Guard is on Machop, it's not getting the effect of Takeout. So definitely a really strong card against Takeout. The main reason you play this is like for Gengar. Opposing Flygon decks can be troublesome as well. But there's just like a ton of decks in the format that have good effects of attack, and being able to counter that is a super solid option. That's the reason you play 2. It's really good against Gengar as well. Gengar's another solid deck in the format that can put some damage on your Claydol's. Shadow Room for 1 Psychic puts 30, but if they have a power, does 60. So they 2-shot your Claydol's, but if you just put a G on a Claydol, then you get to keep it. Okay, so you also play some Sprites in this deck. So you play 1 Azelf. So Azelf from Legends Awakens got 70 HP, a single retreat, and a weakness to Psychic. Time Walk is the reason you play this card. So when you bench Azelf from your hand, you can search your prizes for a Pokemon, put it in your hand, and then switch a card in your hand with one of your prize cards, or with that card. So you just get a plus of Pokemon from your prizes. It just keeps you consistent. Like I said, there's a ton of Pokemon in this deck, so prizing any piece can be really bad. Like if you prize a Flygon level X, or a Nidoqueen piece, or a Machamp, it just like messes with your strategy, and when you're able to keep that consistent, it just helps a lot with the main strategy of the deck. You also play 1 Uxie. So Uxie's got 70 HP, a single retreat, and a weakness to Psychic. Setup is the reason you play this. So setup, when you bench Uxie, you can draw until you have 7 cards in your hand, which is just such good draw. You only play 1 because you play Claydol, but being able to Roseanne's for such a good draw option is too good not to pass up on. Staple for pretty much every deck in the format. And then, I didn't talk about the attack with Azelf. You do play Psychic, so you can use his attack. So lock up for 1 Psychic, it does 20, and then your opponent's active can't retreat during their next turn. And then Psychic Restore is the attack on Uxie. So for 1 colorless, it is 20. And then you can put Uxie and all cards attached to the bottom of your deck if you want. So definitely a decent option. There are some situations where this is good, but it's not a really frequent attack you're going to be using a lot. So you also play 1 Chatot. So Chatot has got free retreat, which is great, a resistance to fighting and a weakness to lightning. Mimic is the free attack that you use this for. So Mimic for free, shuffle your hand to your deck, and then you draw up until your opponent's hand size. So this format can lead to some pretty large hand sizes, especially against like Gyarados and stuff. So being able to shuffle in and draw until you just hit all of your pieces is a really solid option, especially when you don't really have any good early games. You don't play Broken Time Space because you don't have a reason to really. Like if you're slow, you get to use uppers, but if you set up at the same pace, then it doesn't matter if your opponent has broken time space anyway. And if they do drop it, you can just sand wall it as well. So really you don't need broken time space. But yeah, Mimic. So Mimic's a solid attack. Chatter's also really good. So for 2 colors, it does 20. And then the defending Pokemon can't retreat during your opponent's next turn. So another lockup attack like Azelf, definitely niche situations where this is good. Like I said, you do have mill options in this deck, so knowing when you need to just stall your opponent active and hopefully mill them out can be a win condition at times. Okay, so this is a spicy card in this deck. So you play 1 Ditto DNA Ditto. So 60 HP, a single retreat, and a weakness to fighting. Ditto DNA essentially says Ditto is the opponent's active Pokemon if it's active. So let's say Ditto's active, and then the opponent has like, okay, let's say they have a Machamp, and then they try to take out on Ditto. That doesn't actually work because Ditto's not technically a basic Pokemon. Ditto's now a stage 2 Machamp. So kind of an interesting interaction there. It's also really good against opposing Flygon decks because Flygon is weak to colorless, so it's weak to itself. And if you're able to hit a Flygon with a Flygon that's not actually a Flygon, like they've invested a Trapinch, a Rare Candy, or a Vibrava, and a Flygon into this, where if you invested a single card, like only the energy attachments are the investments on the Ditto. So your trades are really positive because if you're setting up Flygons on the bench and then you knock their Flygon, if they have like 2 Flygons and then they kill your Ditto, but their Flygon goes down as well, they have 1 Flygon left and you probably have 1 to 2 on your bench, so you win that war, which is a really neat part about Ditto. Ditto has a couple other uses as well. It's pretty good against Gengar as well. You put a Psychic on there, you can start Shadow Rooming their Sprites or Claydols, and then getting Fainting Spell is really good too, but it really depends on what the matchup is and what your opponent's playing, if Ditto is that useful in a matchup. Okay, so getting into some of the trainers and supporters. So for Rare Candy, pretty staple in a stage 2 deck, especially one that runs multiple lines. You know, usually the rule is you play 1 more Rare Candy, but there's so many stage 2s in the deck, or 1 more Rare Candy than you need rather. So if you need like 2 here, 1 here, 1 here. But it's not that big of a deal. I mean, you do play 2 Night Maintenance as well, so you are able to get some fair Pokemon consistency with that, and it also helps just to get some fast Claydols. Like if you need to go Rare Candy Claydol and you're falling behind, you can also do that, but just staple in stage 2, really solid card. So Night Maintenance is a 2 of as well that I was talking about. So Night Maintenance is really solid. Search your discard pile for up to 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy cards, show them to your opponent, and then shuffle them into your deck. So that can be really great for a lot of things. I mean, if Ditto is really useful in a matchup, you can get 3 Dittos if you want, which really just helps you swing the Flygon mirror so hard. That's one of the reasons. There was another Flygon deck, Flygon Memory Berry, that was all through top 8. There was a lot of them, but unfortunately it has a poor matchup to this deck just because Ditto's so big and the attacking power of Machamp is also pretty insane. So that in combination with just like okay, so you're already playing Flygon, so you have a benefit against Mirror that's the same, but you're also playing Machamp, so you're able to start taking out if you happen to hit an early lead and they don't have stage 2s right away, or they have like a Chatot active. You can just take an early aggressive lead and they don't really have a good response to Machamp, and then in order and then in combination with Night Maintenance, it just means that you have the resources to just outlast your opponent if they're not playing the Machamp Line or the Ditto. So definitely a really solid card. It also lets you hit like 3 to 4 Flygon level X's if you want. Shuffling back a Flygon level X, it's really good. You can get a Premier Ball to get it back as well, which brings us to Premier Ball. So Premier Ball, search your deck or discard for a level X Pokemon and then put it in your hand. So great for getting Flygons back or finding an early Flygon. But in combination with Night Maintenance and Premier Ball, like you just have so many Flygon level X options, and you should be wind erosioning like a lot of the game as soon as you get a Flygon level X up. You also play a Luxury Ball. So Luxury Ball, search your deck for any Pokemon excluding level X Pokemon and then put it in your hand. You play so many Pokemon that this card is just really good. Unfortunately, you can't play more than one because once it's in your discard, you can't use it. But it's a staple for a lot of decks as at least a 1-of. Some of them even play 2 because they play ways to discard it. But Luxury Ball is super solid. Okay, so getting into some of the supporters now. So you play 4 Roseanne's Research. Roseanne's Research, search your deck for 2 in any combination of basic Pokemon and basic energy cards, show them to your opponent, put them in your hand. So that's really good for energy consistency. It lets you play some thin lines. You only play 4 fighting energy and 2 psychic. But again, with Night Maintenance and Roseanne's being able to search it out, it's super fine. And Claydol too, you can just draw into that as well. Just a really solid card to help you set up and find energy. So you play 4 Bebe Search as well. The Bebe Search, choose a card from your hand, put it on top of your deck, and then search your deck for a Pokemon, put it in your hand. So Bebe Search can find level X Pokemon, which is great. You don't play a ton of cards that do that other than Premier Ball. But it also just, Pokemon consistency. You play so many Pokemon, and your whole strategy relies on setting up a board of Pokemon and then power swinging for a ton of damage or attacking with those other Pokemon. So setting it up is really, really important. You do also play 2 Cynthia's Feelings. So Cynthia's Feelings, shuffle your hand to your deck, draw 4. If one of your Pokemon got knocked out from damage from your opponent's attack, or maybe damage, maybe just knocked out. But yeah, if one of your Pokemon got knocked out during your opponent's last turn, you draw 4 more cards. So you shuffle, draw 8, which is like a significant amount of cards. But yeah, just really good to hit those big combos. Usually you're searching for Flygon level X or level X out. So Cynthia's Feelings to shuffle, draw 8, and then being able to Claydol and potentially Uxie after that just means that you usually hit what you need to after you get knocked out. You play 1's Lucian's Assignment as well. So this is a spicy card in this list. I really like this card. So yeah, Sami played a Lucian's because how Machamp works and how Flygon works is they're pretty heavy on the energy to attack. Like 3 energy for the basic Flygon, 3 energy for the level X, and then Machamp, I think it's 3 energy. Yeah, 3 energy for Strong-Willed. Takeout's 1, but all the good attacks need more than 1 energy. So Lucian's being able to just switch around energy. You move all the energy attached to one of your Pokemon to another one of your Pokemon. And since everything has free retreat, you can like have a Machamp active, retreat with it, use Lucian's Assignment, take all the energy off the Machamp, put it on a Flygon, and then start attacking with the Flygon right away instead of waiting that turn to attach if you missed a couple attachments. And then you just let the Machamp heal. But there's a lot of really good uses for this as well. Like switching it to a Ditto can situationally be really good too, or a Nidoqueen if you need to hit for psychic weakness. It really just depends on what your opponent's board looks like. Okay, so getting into the energy cards now. So you play 4 Call. Flygon attacks for colorless, so being able to have a colorless that also helps you out with in the early game is really beneficial. Call, it's 1 colorless energy, but if it's attached to your active Pokemon, you can activate it, and then it ends your turn, and you search your deck for 2 basic Pokemon and put them under your bench, or up to 2. So just a really, really solid early consistency card. I mean, if you hit that turn 1, your board is looking pretty good going into turn 2. Let's get like a Baltoy so that you have a Claydol or an out to Claydol in your hand. You can definitely just activate that next turn. And then you also play 4 fighting energy. So this is really important for a couple of reasons. You need to have a fighting energy on your Flygon so that your Claydols and stuff have free retreat and your Machamp has free retreat. But also because you attack with Machamp. So in combination with Night Maintenance, 4 is definitely plenty, as well as Roseanne's. Like you can search it really easily. And the main attack you're going to be attacking with Machamp is going to be Takeout, so you only need 1. You play 3 Upper energy as well. I think Upper is a super solid card in this deck, and this is one of the reasons that this deck has a good mirror matchup or a good matchup against the Palkia version of this deck, is because it plays Upper. So if the Palkia version decides to go up on prizes first, this deck has a really solid comeback option in Upper. So Upper, it's 1 colorless, but if you're down on prizes, it's a double colorless energy. So being able to go 1 on a Flygon, and then your opponent knocks you out, and then you go Upper energy, and then you power swing on that second turn when you really shouldn't be able to power swing at all, is a super solid asset, and it helps a lot with coming back with this deck. Upper energy is a really solid comeback card. You can play 2 Psychic Energy as well. So this is so you can attack with Nidoqueen, and so Ditto can use some stuff, and you can use Lockup if you want. But the main reason you play Psychic is so that you can put Psychic on your Flygon and have free retreat on all your Psychic Pokemon. Like Nidoqueen has 3 retreat, which is too fat, and you really don't want to be paying the 1 retreat on Guard or Unknown or Guard or Azelf or Uxie either. So being able to get those for free is a really solid addition to the deck as well. Okay, well, this has been Flychamp. If you have any questions about the deck, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get to them. But thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.